welcome to the Manic Pixie Dream Vlog. I'm your host, Caroline Georges, and welcome. So today I want to talk about cowardice, particularly SNL. Last week they fired Shane Gillis, a man that they cast to be a player on SNL. They fired him for comedy over their SNL, a sketch comedy, show where writers are comedians, producers are comedians, everybody there is a comedian and is very familiar with comedy and how it works. And they're very familiar with act outs. They know what act outs are. So Shane Gillis on a podcast 2 years ago did an act out where they were talking about racism in Chinatown and how it's kind of racist that you make an entire race live in a certain area. So they're talking about this, and Shane Gillis acts out a racist. He puts himself and does the voice of a racist being a racist. And so he wasn't being racist at all. He was making a joke. He was being a comedian. Yeah. So you would think SNL, Saturday Night Live, a comedy sketch program, would be like, oh, well, he just did an act out. That's not racist. Let's just forget about this. Let's stand by this man who is going to be paid $15,000 a week. He's going to get so much exposure from this program. We cannot take away this opportunity from this man for making a joke. We can't possibly do this. How could we possibly do this? You would think that's how SNL would have responded to that, but they didn't. You know why? Because they're cowards. They're fucking cowards. And, in America, it's turning into ancient Sparta, where the winner of an argument is the person who screams the loudest. Not the person that's right, it's the person who's screaming the loudest. There is a small group of people who are screaming louder than everybody else, and because they're screaming louder than everybody else, we have to listen to them. Why? Why? Why do we have to listen to them? Are they right? No. Very often they're not. Very often they're wrong. Why do we have to listen to them? Just because they're screaming the loudest. Why do we have to listen to them, SNL? Why did you have to listen to them? You knew they were wrong. Anyways, and what infuriates me more is that the guy who called him out as a racist, he's a comedian too, who should know better, who should have defended him, who, if it really did bother him what he said, or if he didn't understand the joke, he should have checked in with him or something like that. He should have talked to him. He shouldn't have just gone out and ruined his life. I'm sorry. I would love to have Shane Gillis' problems right now, to be honest. So I don't think Shane Gillis' life is ruined. I think it's just beginning. He's going to have a grand career in comedy. Trust me. So he's fine. I wish I had his problems, but I don't. Shane Gillis does, and he lost his dream job over making a joke, and that's really fucking wrong. It's wrong to be a coward. You are not a good person if you are a coward. I wasn't a good person when I was a stripper because I was a coward and I was too cowardly to leave. Now that I'm not stripping anymore, I have the freedom to become a better person. I have all of this freedom laid out before me to become a better person. And that's an opportunity I didn't have before. And it took a kick in the butt, It took me getting fired for a bullshit reason. For bullshit. I'm sorry. I was just being a fucking stripper. I was just hustling. You know what I mean? I'll always be pissed about it. So I'll always think it's ridiculous. But anywho, I remember one night there's a stunt double. There's this guy, there's a client who's a stunt double. And he's very successful. He's very successful as a stunt double. And he's very big and he's very strong. He's like 6'2", 200 pounds, broad shoulders, big arms. He's a strong man. And I saw him be so fucking weak. It disgusted me. And he came in, he went back with me and another girl. We were in the back partying, you know, showing him a good time. And then he said, I want to try something. And we were like, okay, what? And then he said, I want to try coke up my asshole. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And then the other girl was like, I will. And so she did. And so the guy pulled down his pants, bent over, and she just blew coke up his asshole. And, you know, and I remember looking at him and looking at this big, strong man with coke being blown up his asshole through a straw by a 100-pound stripper. And I was disgusted. And I just thought, how dare you be weak, dude? How dare you be such a weakling? Look at you. You're 6'2", broad shoulders, big arms, 200 pounds of muscle. Why are you so fucking weak? You should be out, you know, helping little old ladies across the street. You should be out saving a kitten from a tree. You should be out, you know, stopping fights. You should be out, you know, when like a girl is being harassed at a bar or something like that. You should be out there stopping that girl from being harassed, you know, because of what you look like. That's how I felt. And then I had this weird, crazy epiphany. And I had this feeling of just like, God, I was a child. I was a child once. I was a little girl. I was an innocent little girl once with pigtails and a teddy bear. And now look at me. And that was a real eye-opener for me. That was a real taste of reality. Like, I was like, wow, I'm a stripper. I grew up and became a stripper. And this is my life. Watching men be just bent over and, you know, it was crazy. It was this crazy epiphany. And then I took a break and I took all the cash that I had. And I remember I went into the bathroom and I sat on the toilet and I just counted my money and counted my money and counted my money and tried not to cry. Like, it was just, you know, but, you know, I have a friend and he's a coward. And like the stunt double guy, he's broad shoulders, big arms, 200 pounds of muscle, 6'2", you know, and he's a coward. He said that in grade school and junior high and high school, he used to befriend bullies. Because that way, if he befriended the bullies, he wouldn't be the one that got bullied. Because, you know, that's how Hitler came into power. People, you know, were afraid, so they befriend the people they were afraid of, and then became the thing that they were afraid of, you know? And this man, he's friends with a man he knows sexually assaulted a woman. He's friends with a man he knows sexually battered a woman. There's a man out there who targeted a woman, preyed upon a woman, got her alone, and sexually assaulted her and sexually battered her. There is a man that did that. And my friend is friends with him because he's friends with bullies. And being friends with bullies makes him feel like he's strong. You know, and I just think, when I was 13, I went through so much, and I was suffering so much that I was 13 years old, and I got out of bed not knowing how I was going to go on. That 13-year-old girl could push this man over with a feather. Because he's a coward. But, you know, I'll never say yes all men. I'll always say not all men, because not all men. So many men have felt my suffering and have been strong for me in feeling my suffering, you know, because of what they've gone through, you know, that they can kind of take all of their experiences of pain and put it in a blender and mix it up and then somehow get, you know, have something that tastes like my pain. They can relate to it, you know. So many men have done that, you know, have related to me because they know what it feels like to be pushed up against the wall. They know what it feels like to be pushed around. They know what it's like to have somebody take advantage of them in cruel ways. They know what that feels like. So they can know what I feel like. Those are strong men. Those are the strong men. Those are the men who stormed the beach of Normandy. Those are the men that liberate concentration camps. Those are the men that save children out of burning buildings. Men who can feel my pain and the pain of others. And don't waste their time with bullies. Just because a bully is going to blow cocaine up your asshole and make you feel good because you're weak. And you need someone to make you feel strong. But, you know, with Shane Gillis' accuser, you know, not accuser, Shane Gillis is the guy that, there's another comedian who called out Shane Gillis, and to that guy, you know, why do you give a shit? Why do you give a shit when there's so much else going on in the world that's wrong, that's really wrong? Why do you give a shit about a joke? Why is that what you give a shit about? You know, there are 200,000 rape kits, untested rape kits, sitting in police stations, not being tested. 10,000 of those rape kits are in California alone. 10,000 rape kits in California that have been untested. And could you imagine being a woman who had just been raped, having the wherewithal to go and get a rape kit? And right after being raped and right after being violated in the worst way possible, in the worst part of your body possible to be violated, your private areas, you know what I mean, your genitalia, that's like the worst part of your body to be violated. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just like, I mean, it is. Like, I mean, this is, I mean, your vagina, that's where you feel pleasure, and that's where you're going to feel the pain of giving birth to a baby. You know what I mean? A vagina is actually a very, I mean, not to sound like a wacky feminist, but a vagina is actually a very sacred thing, you know? And the idea of somebody being raped and then having to go get a rape kit performed on them right after being raped and having to be penetrated again right after you were raped sounds like a nightmare to me, and I don't think I would be brave enough. I don't think I would be strong enough. I think I would be too cowardly to do it. So the idea of 10,000 untested rape kits sitting on the shelves in police stations horrifies me, disgusts me, upsets me. And I would love somebody who has a voice like the man who called out Shane Gillis to use his voice to bring attention to this issue. I would love him to, but no. You know what he's going to bring attention to? Himself. Like the pussy little coward that he is. He's going to attack a comedian for making a joke instead of attacking rapists, instead of attacking murderers, instead of attacking, you know, corrupt cops, instead of attacking the people that we should be attacking. He is going to attack somebody who did nothing wrong. because he's a coward. And you know, and I just, to my friend, how dare you have big arms and broad shoulders and 200 pounds of muscle? How dare you? How fucking dare you look like you do and be a coward? And I pray for you. I pray for you that life never touches you like it's touched me. I hope that the pain I experienced at 13 never comes anywhere near you. What would happen to you? You would collapse, you would crumble, because you can't understand what it feels like to be violated, what it feels like to be raped, what it feels like to be abused, what it feels like to be degraded. You can't imagine what that shit feels like because you're a coward. And I'm sorry life never tested you enough to feel empathy for someone like me. But anywho's, I'm very sorry for Shane Gillis. I mean, I'm sorry, like, don't get me wrong. I wish I had his problems. I wish I had his problems. He's going to walk away from SNL with his experience. He's already a folk legend in the comedy community. He's already an up-and-comer in the comedy community. Everyone is looking at him. Everyone wants to hear what he has to say on that stage. He has the world at his feet. So it could be worse. You could just have been fired from being a stripper, and you have to go drive Uber, and your life is crazy, and you know what I mean? You could be me. You know what I mean? Be glad you have your problems. You know? If you're going through something like Shane Gillis is going through, I mean, be glad you have your problems. There are people, I mean, I'm sorry, like, I mean, I'm glad I have my problems. I'm glad that I live in this country. You know, I'm glad I live in America. Even though it's turning into ancient Sparta, I'm glad I live in America. I'm glad that I got kicked out of my ass from being a stripper, and now I don't have to strip anymore. And Uber is a fine consolation prize. Anyways, that's my vlog for today. Well, actually, I do want to say one thing. The bravest man I ever met was my Uncle Matthew. My Uncle Matthew actually did save 2 children out of a burning building. And my Aunt Kathy is like in love with my Uncle Matthew. Like, she's in love with him. Like, they've been married for like 25, 30 years, but she's in love with him. Like, she gushes about him. She like fawns over him. And that's my dream. Like, that's how I want to be with my husband. You know what I mean? Like, I want to have a husband that I can gush over. You know what I mean? I want to have a husband that I can fawn over all the time. I want to have a husband that I can, you know, just worship and celebrate all the time. You know, like my Aunt Kathy does to my Uncle Matthew. And so I was meeting him for the first time. I was like 15, and it was the first time my dad was seeing him in a long time. And so my Uncle Matthew and my Aunt Kathy and me and my dad were all having dinner. And my Aunt Kathy just, you know, mentioned like how my uncle paid for his college education. Because the state paid for my uncle to go to college for a free ride because my uncle saved 2 children out of a burning building. And they gave him like a civilian's medal or whatever, and he got to be in the Thanksgiving Day parade. Like, it was a huge fucking deal. Like, it was a huge deal. Huge. My dad never heard of this. My dad had no idea. My dad and my Uncle Matthew used to talk on the phone all the time. And my Uncle Matthew never once mentioned it. Because he's brave. And because that's what you do. That's what a man does. You're not owed anything for doing the right thing. It's just what you do. You just do the right thing. Even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when there's flames going up around you, you go in and you save those 2 children. SNL, you should have saved Shane Gillis's opportunity to be on your show. Because that's what you do. You do the right thing, even when it's hard. And if you don't do the right thing and you do the wrong thing, how dare you act like you did the right thing when you clearly did the wrong one? How dare you act like you did something noble? You didn't. I mean, isn't that narcissism? That's what narcissism is. You know, in the Iliad, Prince Paris was based off of Narcissus. And Narcissus was the guy who fell in love with his own reflection in the water and fell into the water and drowned. And so Prince Paris was a narcissist who only thought of himself. And when he killed Achilles, he did it surrounded by guards, surrounded by a wall. Nothing was getting to him. Nothing was going to touch him. And he shot an arrow at Achilles and hit Achilles in the ankle, and Achilles died. That's SNL. Because after Prince Paris killed Achilles in the most cowardly way possible, with all this protection, with all of his guards and with all that wall, you know, he managed to kill Achilles in the most cowardly, weakest way possible. And you know what he did? Afterwards, he threw a party for himself. He threw a big party for himself. And he had all of Troy celebrating him for killing Achilles in a cowardly way. That's SNL. They almost destroyed a man's career. They almost destroyed a man's life. But as long as it makes them look good, they don't care that they did the wrong thing. I shouldn't be the one telling SNL what comedy is. They should be telling me what comedy is. But they're not. Anyways, that's my vlog for today. Have a lovely night, have a lovely afternoon, have a lovely morning, and thanks for watching. And like and subscribe. Thanks, bye.